live from quarantine in Northwest Indiana. So again, I wanted to make another video about the coronavirus. So maybe you're stuck at home, maybe you're still working, maybe you aren't working, but you're still going out as much as possible wherever you can because you're not ready to give that up yet. Either way, you're probably spending a lot more time at home than you ever have before. I know that's the case for most people I've talked to. And it might be nice to be hanging out with your pets and your family members and getting some chores done around the house and stuff like that. But there's also a good chance you might already be getting bored, or you might be getting restless, anxious, or in this situation, what I hear is common for us to be feeling is depression. And I've experienced it too. And a lot of people are feeling depressed. It's still pretty gloomy outside, although it's getting nicer today. It was beautiful. But you figure, what's the point? Because your whole model of who you think you are revolves around your job, your friends, where you go out to, your exercise routine, and that's all been disrupted. You know, your expectations of how reality is supposed to be is disrupted. So it kind of shows you your attachments. It shows me my attachments and my clingings, of like where my mind's clinging at, you know, the models of how I think it should be. And it is important, although it is important to know that you could still go outside on runs and walks and bike rides and stuff, because that is important for depression. It gets your endorphins flowing, which substantially helps. But usually you can keep yourself fairly busy enough in your normal day-to-day life where you get your pleasurable experiences in close enough together that you don't have to really look at yourself. You don't really have to feel where you're at. You know, this might be the case that if you were alone, you'd be depressed, or stuck in your house, you'd be depressed because maybe you've never really connected to a deeper aspect of yourself. And if you look at yourself, you find that you're a pretty shallow person. But normally you don't have to face that. You could just go out to the bar every night, go to work, hang out with your friends, kind of eat, watch some TV, and you never really sit there and contemplate that. So it's okay. You never have to face it, you know, but now maybe you do have to. And I don't know, you can only watch so much TV before you feel like you're wasting your time. And it kind of makes you think, because usually you want more free time, but maybe not in this way where you need to be home. So like, what do you do with it? Do you sit around and drink and do drugs? Do you watch as many movies or play as many video games as possible? Maybe you even thought about picking up a book for the first time in a long time. That's a good one to do some contemplation. Read a little bit of something that really means a lot to you and sit there with it and contemplate it, sort of like an inspirational quote. I seen a picture of the Bible section at a store being sold out, and I thought that was really cool because it means people are looking within. They've had a wake-up call, and they're like, man, what's this all about? I want to see if I could find some answers somewhere. So maybe you're experiencing, also you could be experiencing a lot of anger or fear because you're worried about your finances, your family's health, your job, the economy. Maybe you hate the president. Maybe you love the president. Maybe you think this is all a giant scam, either because we're overreacting to it or because there's secret political and governmental plots behind what's going on. Either way, it's a really interesting time. I mean, imagine how the people in Europe felt during the Black Plague. Over 7 years, it killed between 75 and 200 million people. It was like 30 to 60% of the population of Europe, they estimate, got wiped out. So imagine that, half the people you ever knew being dead, you know, or wouldn't that be strange? Or imagine, have you seen those videos in Italy where people are lined up from coronavirus on the ventilators and stuff like that? And they're young people too that are getting sick from it. But even older people, it's like, I hear a lot of people like, oh, it just gets older people sick. Don't worry about it. It's just old people or people with weak immune systems or whatever. But those are people too. They're literally people just like you. Like, that could be you in a couple of years. That will be you if you live long enough. You'd be the same you that you are right now, just in an older body and more susceptible to illness. So that's really an irrelevant factor to consider on that basis, I would say. But regardless, this whole thing has probably challenged your everyday habits and your thought models, which is a good thing. Maybe it's made you reevaluate what's important in your life. Maybe it's shown you how the fabric of society and our lives can be so easily upended out of our control. Maybe you have some fear, but you don't want to tell anyone about it because you're supposed to be the tough one in the house. Or maybe you have an addiction that you're worried you won't be able to satisfy during this time. Maybe you just think you're going to go crazy. Or maybe you think for a second that this could really be a time to get deeper into yourself and learn more about who you are. And maybe you'll deepen your prayer life or your religious and spiritual studies. Or maybe you could spend some time just sitting there in meditation, breathing in and breathing out. Excuse me. You can ask yourself questions such as, who am I really behind all the thoughts? Behind all of this doingness that I'm always doing? Who am I when I'm done being who I thought I was, who I think I am? Or maybe you'll blow the next month scrolling through Facebook like I've been trying not to do the past couple of days. And that's okay too. It's important to take a look at your mental health, I would say, and it's important to talk about it. I've never met anybody in my life who couldn't benefit by telling the truth about themselves to somebody else. And I mean the real truth. An example would be like something that you can't tell anybody or would never want to admit about yourself to anybody and tell someone it. That kind of truth. The kind of truth that really gets you free. For me, I've relished the idea of this opportunity to work on my spiritual life through meditation and study and contemplation of various books. Reading spiritual literature has always done wonders for me since I've been in recovery the past 4 years. It's been by far the top 3 most beneficial practices for me, along with meditation and honest sharing and listening with others. Just sharing and talking with other people who are also struggling and working on themselves. That connection has done wonders for me. I'm blessed to be in 12-step programs because it's a place where people come together for a common purpose of working on themselves and their spiritual life, which is something that anybody could use, but most people don't have a set place where they go and work on that, or people that they could really talk to about what they have going on all the time, and it's normal. And it's not like the person's like, oh, I wish they didn't bring that up to me, or like, all right, it's okay. It's a real place where you're able, but not everybody has that. You could find it somewhere, but not everybody has it right now in their life. So I found some really cool movies and documentaries during this time that have been extremely beneficial to me. I think in the description section, I'll drop the links to 3 or 4 good books, a few good guided meditations that I know of, some good speakers to check out, and some good movies and documentaries. And I'll also drop the link to a couple of websites of some spiritual teachers that I like. So if you check out some of that, you might find it pretty interesting. Anyways, even if you can't get out there, there's tons of online support groups that have always been around, and there's more that are popping up now during this time for any and everything. There's online forums, there's people and hotlines to call during this time. Plus, I guarantee if you really wanted to have a serious conversation with someone, at least half of the people you know would take you up on it. And you could always reach out to me. I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I just started going to online 12-step meetings. And it's amazing and really lightens the mood, because you realize everyone's in the same predicament right now that you are. Everybody's sitting there in their house the whole entire day. I mean, I know some people are still going to work, but for the most part, people are spending a lot more time at home. The issue is that we love hearing about things that could benefit us. We love hearing these things and we're like, oh, wow, that sounds good. That makes sense. But very few of us actually ever take the step of action. It's just too much for our egos to admit that me, could need some help. But every single person does, and if you think you don't, are you saying that you're perfect, or there's no growth necessary for you, or are you perfectly content just the way you are? And if so, that's fantastic. But if not, just know that you're not going to get there through some passage of time or through some external event in your life. It would be a fallacy to say, okay, it's going to suck while I'm on quarantine. I'm going to be depressed and this and that, and then once I get out, it'll be better. I mean, you could view it like that if you want, but then you're wasting that whole time not being present, basically sitting in the future just waiting for it to be over. And even though we are all afraid to delve into deeper aspects of ourselves, we do have the ability to move through that fear and see what's on the other side. We could always explore further and further inside of ourselves. Like, you could hear this talk and be like, yeah, that's cool and all, and enjoy it, which is good. But chances are we aren't actually going to do anything different, you know? And that's okay too, because I think a deeper part of yourself always keeps you away from what you aren't ready for. So if you're not ready to take a deeper look at yourself, there'll always be an excuse on why not to. If you think of how many of us sit there in depression all the time, not just during coronavirus quarantine, but sit there in depression all the time. You see people with it everywhere, but yet are unwilling to take any positive action to change it. You know, like, you could see somebody that says, "Oh, I'm depressed," and you're like, "Hey, I got some suggestions. Why don't you try this or this or this?" And they're like, "No, that won't work for me." Um, but it's understandably difficult from the inside perspective, because the one who's depressed is the one who's expected to want to do something about the depression, but they're the one that's depressed in the first place. So if they were able to do something about the depression, they may not have been depressed in the first place. Just something to think about. So you can get caught in that web there pretty easily, you know. But more importantly than what I'm saying, though, is those links I'm going to drop in the description will have some really cool stuff. So if anything, just check those out. And if you get to check any out, let me know what you think. If you listen through this video till the end, feel free to give me a like or a subscribe, or like I said, click on the description and see what's down there, or you can give us a comment. But thank you, and I will be back.